Hi there, welcome to our latest bonus chat. If you missed our podcast looking back at Stormers v Leinster, we harped on Leinster's difficulties with the ball in Cape Town, as well as the numerous set piece failures. So check it out on Apple, Spotify, and all the other usual places. And since we obviously seem to enjoy torturing ourselves, myself and my guest David Cordial are going to harp on Leinster's woes a little more because among all the failures and foibles at the DHL Stadium, there just seemed to be a lack of leadership on the pitch for us.
Yeah, they did. Like it's something we said in the main pod. When things aren't going well on the pitch, um, there's a knee-jerk reaction among some people. Sorry, knee-jerk is an unfair characterization. There is an inclination to sometimes look at the coaching staff, to look at the preparation, to look at all that work. At the end of the day, you step onto a field, and for those 80 minutes, what happens on that field is mostly, with the exceptions of substitutions, mostly up to the lads on the pitch. Um, Leinster have experimented in the past with co-captains. We've moved now to having Kellen Doris, who's obviously absent due to injury for a while. Um, but I think the thing that co-captains, which didn't work because of the way that the rugby as a game is structured, showed is that there's a desire to have a kind of a broader leadership group. It's something Tyke Furlong has talked about for Ireland. He's never really been he felt in the running for captain, although he has captained Ireland now at least on one occasion, but that he would have been in the leadership group. That you have a group of players who have been around a while and who can, in the heat of the battle, if things aren't going well, kind of rally the troops and bring everyone together and go, look, we're just going to settle. We're going to take a few deep breaths, do our breathing exercises, get ourselves back in line. This isn't going well. We're going to change this. This isn't going well right now, but if we keep at it, it will. There's those little decisions on the field that just need to be made and need to be just a word, just a kind of a here, lads, let's keep the heads up, chins up, let's take it easy, let's settle back in. Just a little bit of guidance, a little bit of a hand on the back, slap on the arse if you're James Lowe, whatever it is that you need to just kind of get yourself back into the mood for the game. And the number one way to lead when you're on the pitch is by example. The first player when I was thinking about this that jumped to my mind, possibly because of the rugby championship I was watching, was Artie Salvea, where that's a lad who just every time you look at him, go look if you ever have any doubts about what you're supposed to do on the pitch, look what Artie's doing and follow him. That's what you need to be doing. Whatever he's doing, do that. That's the kind of player you want. Ty Furlong, that's probably why he ends up there because this is a guy who's a front row prop who can sidestep, can throw 20-meter passes, can, kick. He's a gap player after all. But like that's what you need. They needed leadership. And it was so obvious on this pitch that there was none. Like, Luke McGrath's captain of the day. And I think that's a real indictment of Luke, who's a great player, he's a great servant for Leinster. But this guy has like 230 plus Leinster caps. He's captained the team multiple times in the past. He is a solid player. He's a sensible head and shoulders. But it just seemed like throughout the game there was no impetus in the team to go, hey, come on, let's just take it there and go again. It seemed so fractured. It seemed so uncertain. And the thing about great teams is they tend to have that kind of leader. You have a Johnny Sexton, you have I don't Peter O'Mahony. Like, you have these talismans who can just go, even if they're not the best. Peter O'Mahony used to there's talk constantly for the last 5 years of that guy's career, there was talk that he was done. And every time he'd show up on a big day and show how it was meant to be done. That was a guy who could lead with words and lead with actions. That's what you need. You need a player, particularly when things aren't going well, who can just grab you and bring you in and bring you along with them and just go, this is the way, follow me, we can do this. There was none of that on the pitch. There was none, and you could tell because it got worse. The longer the match went on, the worse it got. The first half was the best of it, and then as soon as we cracked, we shattered, and it never came back together, and it just got worse and worse. And that's what I said. Like if that match had gone on for 10 more minutes, they would have scored 10 more points at least. And that's the thing I think that we will have to see next week. Given that it will be mostly the same team, there's not any lads going to be flying down, certainly. And so it's going to be a question of it'll probably be Luke McGrath captain again. It'll probably be a lot of the same players again, but it'll have to be a question of if things don't go on the pitch, who do we look to? Who's going to be the guide? Because um, that I think that's a large part of the difference between a team playing well and a team playing not, because these are all the same players that have we've seen do great things in the past. So you have to ask, well, what's missing? And then what's missing is that, 2 square feet of real estate above the shoulders. You're like, what's going on in there? And it just seems like, you know, um, that line, if you can keep your head when all around you are losing theirs, that's what we need in Leinster. And you don't need that many. You just need one in the back, maybe one in the backs, one of the forwards. That's all you really need. Um, and I think that's one of the things that I really felt looking back at that game was lacking. It was like there's no sense of of who's taking ownership of this. Even Sam, he's the one of the youngest guys out there, so it's a bit much to expect from that. He was taking his kicks really well, and you can go, that's the one thing you can hang your hat on, but that's not enough. You need someone. Sam Prendergast is never going to be this guy. You need someone who's going to run up the front, bounce two guys off him, and punch a hole, and be like, "That's the guy we're following. Let's go with let's do that." We didn't have that guy. I don't know who that guy in that squad is. Um, I think maybe Max Deegan, possibly. If Luke McGrath isn't going to be captain next week, I think that might be someone to look at because he's won in South Africa before. He's shown that he can be that leader in South Africa before. And if we need a little more leadership down there, that might be where it comes from.
Yeah, I mean, because when you look at the starting lineup, I mean, we've spoken like we spoke on the main pod almost as a caveat because some of the players weren't as experienced, the likes of Diarmuid Mangan, Brian Deeney, and Gus McCarthy. But if you look at their appearances, Gus has 15 appearances, Mangan has 15. It's not like they haven't taken the pitch for Leinster before. I mean, 15 was the smallest amount, and then you've got the other end, like you say, Lucas got over 230, Jimmy O'Brien over 100, Robbie Henshaw, Kieran Frawley, Jordan Larmour, all over 100 appearances, Ryan Baird, Scott Penny. But it's like you say, it's not just their experience, it's how they handle themselves on the pitch. I mean, when Luke McGrath went off, I think Scott Penny took over the captaincy. He was talking to the referee
Yeah.
more. I mean, I don't want to be, I don't, I don't want to be too cruel on just one player, or whatever. But we were saying in the WhatsApp group, like, is Scott Penny playing? He
Yeah.
wasn't. You talk about Artie Sevilla. I mean, it was almost the opposite. Artie Sevilla is playing. He's there. He makes it known. He makes the ball in leadership. Scott Penny, maybe a different kind of player and all, but he's not imposing himself on the team, and in the back row, especially in South Africa against a fired up team like the Stormers. You need your back row on point. So you need leadership coming from those who have been nominated leaders, I suppose, is the way to put it. So you have to ask yourself, how does this group get back together? Because it's a group, like I say, it's the strongest team we've sent down there so far, and it'll probably be a similar team next week. So it's a question of well, first of all, reacting to that performance in itself, but also playing the way we know they can play.
Yeah, I think that's what any player who comes in to lead the team has to go back to, is to go is to say that is to say, look, we are better than this. Okay, like there can be a lack of belief, and that can be a really tough thing. And it was actually something from the other perspective that we talked about, um, more with Ireland squads than Leinster squads, but with Leinster squads as well. And I've talked about it in regards to Ulster this season as well, with their kind of some change over there and some young players coming through, is that if you're a player in a team that's had a history of tough times, of losing, or like say with Ireland, it was losing to the All Blacks, it can be really hard to get yourself out of that mindset. And I think Leinster have definitely suffered from that in Champions Cup finals, where there have been days when they've been outplayed and there have been days when they just dropped the ball, and that's a lot of that is mindset. Um, I think now we have a generation of players in Leinster. We're lucky enough to have them, in other places. I think they're hoping to build them where we can go, you guys are good enough. We've seen you do it before. You can do this. Like, you go to Harry Byrne, you go, you went away to Bristol, you were kind of blind, you were kind of falling out of the Irish head. You went to Bristol and you played really well. You played well enough that you came right on back, and we were like, let's get this guy in it. Like, you were the starter in the preseason game. You came off the bench with more than 20 minutes to go in Cape Town. You came back to Leinster because you want to be that guy. Be that guy. Like, this is your chance. We know you have it. Robbie Henshaw shouldn't need to be told. He should be one of the leaders. I was like, you're a test lion. Get out there and show them why. These players, there are players in there. Ryan Baird, Peter O'Mahony now having retired. Baird has been lighting it up, particularly at the end of last season in the sixth jersey for Leinster. I was like, you want to be that guy, right? I know you want to be that guy. You've got 30 caps for Ireland. I know you want more. Like, be that guy. And I think that should be the impetus behind a lot of these players going, you have done all the hard work. And it's weird to think about that when you think about it in terms of professional rugby. But any of us who've ever been involved in sport at any level know that 90%, 95%, 99% of people who play in any sport never play it professionally, never even get close to playing it professionally. I was like, the fact that you are Leinster rugby players means you already made it. You're already there. And some of you have made it further and will make it further. You have to make that real. You have to make that real. And I think they need someone like a Henshaw, like a Luke McGrath, someone to go, you need to make this real. You are good enough. I don't want us going out to Cape Town. As much as I said, I want us to go out there and get one score. I want us to go out there and get something. Go ahead to Cape Town and go, you know what we could do? We could win this game. And even if they don't, that needs to be the mindset they go into it. They need to be going into going, we could win this game. Let's go do it. Let's when we walk off this pitch, whether we win, whether we lose, whatever the scoreline is, let's walk off the pitch and go, that was the best we could have done. And like, let's hang our hats on that. Because the one thing I can say for definite about that game is that nobody walked off that pitch and said, yeah, that was the best effort we could have done. No one. And I think if they can switch that around, if there's a player or two in there, Jack Nienaber as the coach, I mean, he can do pretty well to the South Africans. That is a really motivated team. Bring a bit of that energy into the squad, and particularly given the environment. There's a great sign in Pretoria over the door, and I think it's over the door out onto the pitch for the players. And I can't remember if it's 15 or 1700 meters.
Mm.
They count. So I think take that and go. This is a tough place to go, but let's go.
Well, it's funny you say that because Glasgow won there, and weren't they laughing at that sign afterwards?
There's a great
That's
picture. I can't remember which Glasgow player it is. But there's a
yeah,
great picture of that Glasgow player afterwards pointing
and
up at
that's
the
the
sign.
kind of attitude you
Let's
want. You
do
want you
that.
want to be
Yeah.
motivated by that kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very good. No, I mean, listen, the standards are such at Leinster that like even the training sessions, they're expected to perform. I mean, those, they that's the kind of pressure and that's the kind of standards that they have. So you have to assume, like you say, whatever the coaches do, the players are going to know themselves during the week that they're going to have to improve on that. And they know their reputations. They know that how many caps they have. They know they have to perform. But like you say, yeah, it's about crossing the whitewash and acting like it from the minute they go out there in Pretoria. And hopefully they can do it. Like you say, we're not 100%. It doesn't even have to be necessarily a win, just a performance that shows they put that weekend behind us, and that they know that when the Lions come back into the squad, they're still going to be fighting for their places as well. There's a lot going on there at Leinster, and they just have to turn it around for next week.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Like, and this is always the thing we said about Leinster as a squad. There's so much competition in there. That's usually why they're so good because most of them know if you get one shot, that's all you get. You get one shot. You want to make it work because you're only going to get one. There's too many players in this team. It's a 55-man squad. They're all good enough to start. So if you get a chance to start, you've got to earn it. And for these players, with the Lions being absent, this should be the opportunity of a lifetime to go, hey, look, we went to South Africa, we caused hay. That's not what this narrative is at this stage. Even if Leinster go out and beat the Bulls, unfortunately, last week we'll sit with them for a while. But the opportunity is still there. Winning in Pretoria is still a huge deal. Putting on a good performance in Pretoria is still a huge deal. And they should want that. They should look at this opportunity and go, do you want to still be in the conversation for starting when the Lions come back? If you do, this is your chance. Go for it. And you don't have to be, I talked about leaders in the squad and I thought about older players in the squad. You don't have to be an older player to be a leader. I was watching the Connacht game um, in Galway and there's a young lad, now I think he is a former Leinster player, playing tight head for them, Sam Hillo. And every single time there was a scrap, he was there. Someone shoved Caelan Blade and he almost fired them over the roof into the sea. Like he was there. And this is a young fella who's still in his early 20s, green. He's been a Connacht this season, but he was making sure if there's something going on, I'm there. It doesn't always have to be about that
Yeah,
kind of physicality, but it wouldn't be a bad
yeah.
thing to go, we're here. Like that was the thing. It just felt like the Leinster were just kind of,
Don't take a
like
backward step.
if it happens, it happens.
Yeah,
What are you going to do? I was like, no, you're here. Let's go. I want you to get in their face because they'll get in your face. You can rely on the Bulls for one thing. They'll get in your face. Give it back to them, and you can build on that kind of energy, on that kind of we're here to give it a go and to make ourselves known. And they're gonna feel it. They're gonna feel it in their bodies, and if we work well, they're gonna feel it on the scoreline if we do our jobs right. But and I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that from someone like Jack Boyle. I'd love to see that from These young lads in the props who are so young, I just about know that, like Sparrow and Smith, like to just go, hey, you're in Pretoria, you're playing against the Bulls in Pretoria. This is like where dreams are made. Go out there and fucking smash somebody, hit somebody, make some South African lad go back after this and go, these Irish guys are mental. That's the kind of mark you want to leave. Do it legally, please. We don't need more yellow cards. But like
Yeah,
that's the kind of energy you want. Like otherwise, what are we doing? Like why are you here if you're not going to bring that kind of level of intensity? Um,
absolutely.
it's a long season, but with the number of players, you don't come out of it with necessarily that many caps if you don't make it obvious to the coaches at the end of those 80 minutes why they should pick you again. And I think, in a way they have a blessing in that they're in South Africa. There's a limited squad down there, and the lines are all away. So there's going to be most of the same players again, just because of the way the numbers are. Last week was bad, but you have a chance. You have a chance to right a couple of wrongs, and now go for it. You know,
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed we get some kind of reaction because, like I said somewhere else, like I mean, it got so bad on Friday evening, I nearly switched over to the golf. Which, if you knew me, that's a big deal to switch from rugby to golf. Would have been a big deal, but I managed to hold off. But like I say, hopefully things go better in Pretoria. Well, listen, that's great, Dave. Many thanks for that. And if you, the viewer, have any thoughts yourself on Leinster's performance, or indeed anything you'd like us to harp on in future, please leave your comments below. And sure, while you're at it, be sure to like, share, and subscribe as well.